to start with that first, and then I'm going to ask people to share. And wait a minute. Today's was the decision for God, wasn't it?
Yeah, the decision for God, yes.
Why is it that I'm not? All right. First, I guess. And then I'm going to ask people to share. Um, wait a minute. Today's was. Oh, here it is. The decision for God.
Yeah, the decision for God, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. This is great. I mean, for me, I need to reiterate this every morning because it's important to stop. Do you really believe you can make a voice that can drown out God? Do you really believe you can devise a thought system that can separate you from Him? Do you really believe you can plan for your safety and joy better than He can? You need be neither careful nor careless. You need merely cast your cares upon Him because He careth for you. You, and when he's speaking of you, he's talking about spirit, he's talking about us, and and you are his. Well, his is us to care because he loves you. His voice reminds you always that all hope is because that is not his will. But you can choose to accept his care and use the infinite power of his care for all those he created by it. There have been many healers who did not heal themselves. They have not moved mountains by their faith because their faith was not whole. Some of them have healed the sick at times, but they have not raised the dead. Unless the healer heals himself, he cannot believe that there is no author of difficulty in miracles. He has not learned that every mind created is equally worthy of being healed, because God created it whole. You are merely asked to return to God the mind as He created it. He asks you only what He gave, knowing that this giving will heal you. Sanity is wholeness, and the sanity of your brothers is yours. Does anyone want to share on that? Hi, Carrie. Mark, you
Yeah,
want to share on?
I can share.
Yeah. I'll finish it as we go along. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to share now?
Yeah, of course I do.
Oh, okay. So I'm thinking I've been working with Keith for a while and one-on-one, and I think I finally got through somehow. We've been having a problem with noise here, and my husband and I can be together. We had a really nice day Saturday or Sunday, I don't know what, but we drove to IKEA and we did some stuff, and there was no discord really that day. And before that, I had just decided I don't want to be in these squabbles anymore. And so we fixed up the house. I was trying to get my daughter to move upstairs, but she's not following through on some tasks that she really needs to follow through on. And I
Right.
just decided to say to my husband, he already said he wanted to go upstairs. And I'm like, do you really want to go upstairs? And he said, yes. And the minute I said that, everything kind of dropped. It's not like we're never going to squabble or disagree, but the whole feeling changed between us. I think like he felt I always want to be heard, but I don't want to hear him. you know,
Yeah,
you're wrong and I'm right.
right.
So,
Of course. Yeah.
and I told my daughter, I said, you know what? I've been asking you to do, she leaves her dishes in her room and doesn't, I'm like, you can't do that. She already had a dead mouse under her radiator once. And I'm like, enough is enough. So I said, I'm so sorry. Your dad's going upstairs, but maybe at some later point, he might want to move out of there and try a different room or whatever. And I'm not going to, part of me feels guilty because I'm like, well, how come I couldn't get her to do this? It's been going on for way too long. But anyways, the release of that feels so good. Like we're just in each other's space too much. And we, some things we have in common, but if he's watching a Nikki movie, I'm not going to watch it. And sometimes he watches with me, but we don't spend a lot of good time together. And so this kind of seems to have opened a way by separating a little more, seems to have opened the way for joining. It's kind of very strange, but I understand it in course terms.
That's beautiful. That just works. When we stop and we pause and we realize that we're not in charge of this moment, Spirit is. And what would Spirit have me do? Well, what you did was you asked him what he needed.
Yeah,
And how often do we do that?
hardly ever.
Yeah, you better believe it. For me, anyway. Anyway, so yeah, these things that we're being asked to do are quite simple, but the resistance of it, for me anyway, is sometimes like I don't know what it is. It could be laziness. I have no clue, but I don't always stop and listen and just know that who I truly am would want him to have his way, really. Right? I mean,
Yeah, it goes back to that same quote about outrageous or ridiculous, whatever that,
right.
two quotes.
Yeah, and what is the conflict in relationship? We both want our spouses to do what we want them to do, but not necessarily what they really want to do, right?
Right.
So it's just, and then the conflict begins, you know. Um, my husband and I started the 12, well, I was in the 12 steps before he got there. And then when he became my friend first,
Mhm.
and he was so interested in getting, being healthier in the sense that he wanted to go on a spiritual path. So he did that for about 5 years. And then he just, and when COVID came, he stopped. And I started to get upset with him. And that was coming from the separate self. And it was just silly because in the end, I was talking to my friend Suzanne today. You're not even there. So if you don't want to do a spiritual path, that's really personal. And it's not necessarily it's not a requirement in here in this world. The world here is a world of 10,000 things, and all we're doing all day long is pushing our wants, our needs all away. And that's why I love the nonviolent communication, because it teaches us how to basically just pay attention to the other, pay attention to what they're saying. I have noticed that I don't listen. I just listen to my own mind, and that's and I think what you just shared, Marcy, is just the truth. That it's you just stopped, you just said, do you want to? And that's being there for your brother. It's just being there for the other. And even though there isn't another in the imagined world, it's necessary for us to stop and pause. Sailor Bob used to say, "Full stop, full stop." That's it. Stop. Uh, and what does that really mean? It means ask,
Yeah.
pause, pause. In every moment, we are asked to pause. If anyone's ever listened, I know Lynn has, you probably did too, Marcy, to Rupert Spira. He's always going within, even when he answers the question. He goes deep into his being to get the answer, rather than on the phenomena, which is right here. And it's always about, in some way, a judgment or an attack thought, or it's competing. It's always doing everything to promote conflict.
Mhm.
And that's pretty much what's happening in our world now. There's so much conflict, but the thing I realize is it's just counterproductive for me to watch all this nonsense and then to believe that I really know what should happen. Because really, when you look back at our world, some of the worst catastrophes have settled, a lot of the things that people need. Now, yes, I have my own viewpoint on how I'd want everybody to have everything, but that's not going to happen until, I guess, there's a kind of like a truce in the political scene. And the thing that I realize is, how could there be a truce in this? How could anything, the when we have two sides, how could we expect them to get along? You can't. And then we're always competing who has the better side too. Um, why should you listen to the endless insane calls you think are made up upon you when you know the voice for God is in you? God commanded his spirit to you and asked that you commend yours to him. He will keep to it in perfect peace because you are of one mind and spirit with him. Excluding yourself from the atonement is the last ditch defense of its own existence. It reflects both the ego's need to separate and your willingness to side with its separateness. This willingness means that you do not want to be healed. I always felt like I wanted to be healed, but I think that that is a very true statement because I'm looking at it from Sharon's point. But consciousness itself, the infinite one, is really, it's everything's happening like organically. And of course, we know the ego is on autopilot, and it usually speaks first, or for the most part. And it's all about the feeling. When you really answer a question, you want to be quiet. The quiet answer is always, well, when we're in the quiet answer, it's silence. But when we're really getting quiet, we realize that none of this is important. For a body, it is, but to own who I truly am, I have to just realize that none of it means anything. The only meaning I have is my function. So, but the time is now. You have not been asked to work out the plan of salvation for yourself because, as I told you, the remedy could not be of your making. God himself gave you the perfect correction for everything you made that is not in accord with his holy will. I am making his plan perfectly explicit to you and will also tell you of your part in it and how urgent it is to fulfill it. God weeps at the sacrifice of his children who believe they are lost to him. Of course, God doesn't weep, but it's just the way the concepts show up. So, whenever you are not wholly joyous, it is because you have reached with a lack of love to one of God's creations. So, it's always grievances because nothing really happened, and the space that we really are is totally quiet, totally love, totally accepting. So the decision to react in the way is yours and therefore be undone. It cannot be undone by repentance in the usual sense because, all right, these pages are stuck together. This implicit guilt. If you allow yourself to feel guilty, you will reinforce the error rather than allow it to be undone for you. Decision cannot be difficult. This is obvious if you realize that you must already have decided not to be wholly joyous. If that is how you feel, Therefore, the first step in the undoing is to recognize that you actively decided wrongly, but can as actively decide otherwise. So this just shows us how gentle this process really is. And the only part of us that's not gentle is the part of us that doesn't really exist. The part of us that's battling and we think it means something, or I think it means something. Be very firm with yourself in this and keep yourself fully aware that the undoing process, which does not come from you, is nevertheless within you because God placed it there. Your part is merely to return your thinking to the point at which the error was made and give it over to the atonement in peace. Say this to yourself: as sincerely as you can, remembering that the Holy Spirit will respond fully to the slightest invitation. I must have decided wrongly because I am not at peace. I made the decision myself, but I can decide otherwise. I want to decide otherwise because I want to be at peace. I do not feel guilty because the Holy Spirit will undo all consequences of my wrong decision if I will let Him. I choose to let Him by allowing Him to decide for God for me. So we're really just talking to the infinite self or Holy Spirit or whatever you call it. And if we do that, the quietness comes forward, and that is the Holy Spirit. So since there is no me, this is just a dream, and the dream is a dream of of insanity. It really is, and I think more than ever we see that as we look out at the world. And then there's an idea that I know what should happen in my mind. Like, well, I know that this administration is going to hurt people, and in the end, there are no people to hurt. And yes, most of us, all of us, in fact, would want everybody to get everything. But that's not what this world of form is about. This world of form is about it not being equal. And equality is the most important part of this process, to see everyone as yourself, right? Now I'm going to read from Ken Wapnick's Parents and Children. Preparing children for the world that has no value. How does the Course help us to prepare children for a world that has no value? Moreover, why should I spend thousands of dollars on a college education that teaches my child with the wrong things? So Ken answers. A Course in Miracles does not tell you how to prepare children. Indeed, it does not tell you what to do with any situation. How to be a better spouse, a better parent, a better anything. What it does tell you is how to be a better mind. And that's really important because if I think that I'm this character, and this character that I'm living through, this body mind, will get stuck and it won't even understand why I'd ever want to change a situation, worry about college or any of that. As a person in a body, you do feel like you should. It's all guilt. So you feel like, yeah, I should pay for my kids. After all, I'm their mother, things like that. And that's where the conflict comes in because there's no rule in this world. Just loving the moment, just being in that loving space. What it does tell you is how to be a better mind through forgiving yourself. This means, once again, that the way you become a better parent and truly helpful to your children as you rear them is by being ego-free as possible. And wouldn't that have helped all of us, really? There is no right or wrong way of rearing a child, just as there's no right or wrong answer to your question about funding your child's education. Everything here is wrong since the world was made as an attack on God and the opposite of heaven. This does not mean that we should not teach our children how to take care of themselves. Grooming, dressing, morality, appropriate social behavior, supporting their education, etc. But there's no specific right or wrong way of accompanying these goals. Recall that Jesus tells us, and this is in the manual, the curriculum is highly individualized. And this would include how we parent our children. Now, I was a very neurotic parent when my kids were young. I wanted to know what they were doing, where they were. I wasn't like a parent that disciplined very well either. or set limits or boundaries real well. And I think that's a firm, when you know who you really are, it's more helpful because setting boundaries wouldn't be like a guilt thing. But when the ego's involved, it's the law of opposites. So as soon as you set a boundary, the mind will come back, well, you shouldn't have done that. That was too harsh. So you can't win in the ego. You cannot win in the ego at all. Because once you go into one feeling, the other one comes automatically up. And that's where the confusion comes. So the insanity that we all are is that we're listening to a mind that's truly talking to itself because we're not really there. We are made of the same consciousness that a table is. That basically, what do they say now? Like, the universe itself or the body is made up of stars, right? So it's just these stars, all the parts of this puzzle that we think we're seeing. It's just a consciousness that is absolutely in seeming time. I'm 70, but I don't know that I've been here 70 years, right? Because there's no way. I mean, in the experience, it looks that way, but time is the vast illusion. So he's saying, as parents, we live our lives as individuals and as couples, as defenselessly and ego-free as possible. And then, however, love guides our children will come through us. And we will know exactly what to do or say. This has nothing to do with parenting skills as such, but only with the mind's forgiveness of itself. Complicating this, though, is that our children's egos will resist this love at the same time that another part of the split mind calls for it. Children really know how to get us angry and push our buttons. The older they get, the better they are at it. They seduce by getting us to play their game of specialness on their playground. They get us angry, and when we lose our temper, they know they have gotten us. And they say to themselves, I've won. They exclaim it to themselves. Since the core of the special relationship is getting others to meet our needs, our children merely smile at us, play with us, and do what we want them to do. For then we will love them. In effect, they say to us, hold me, cuddle me, praise me, give me what I want, and I will give you the love that you want. They thus have entrapped us as we have them. We both have won, which means we both have lost. So when Ken talks, sometimes it's long-winded. Would anyone like to share on this?
I can.
Okay, I'd love it. I
Oh my
love it, love it, love it.
So the thing with my daughter, and she is adopted, and that doesn't mean anything to me other than I have an interpretation in my head that she has all these losses from the past. And so her computer used to be right over here, but under that painting of her. And then she decided she had to have more privacy, so she wanted it in her room. And here's the rules, da 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 da. And there really was not supposed to be eating in the bedroom, but eventually she veered off into eating in the bedroom. And so the battle it's ridiculously long because what I said was, if you don't take your dishes out, we're moving your computer back. Well, I have never done that part. And she has consistently, I just checked, and she said, I don't want you in my room. And I'm like, well, you don't have to have me in your room as long as you take care of stuff, but you're not taking care of stuff. So I'm going to go see how much you're not taking care of. So, and I still didn't move it because I know she'll be miserable out here because she'll be near us, her parents.
Right, right. Yes.
And there are, I mean, this is not an easy household to live in for particular. I mean, there's form reasons, but blah, blah, blah. So I know I haven't done a good parenting job, and I must make a sound like this. Her sound is, Like if you're talking to her and she doesn't really want to hear what you're saying, it's a very guttural moaning sound.
It's funny.
And so on the way to school today, I said, hey, it's like so cold out that if any of your friends, like 3 of your friends need a ride, I'll give them a ride. And if you want to stop at Panera Bread, you guys could have something to eat. And I'll either have something at another table or I'll just go looking at some other stores. And then I got that,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So our resistance shows up in such weird ways. And I think I know I'm not helping her with this whole thing in her room. So, and ideally we would move it together. So, and then she wanted to go upstairs. That's what the whole thing was I said, if you can get your act together, you can go upstairs and dad can wait, or we'll figure something else out with us. But, that's when I gave that up. I'm like, you know what? The consequence isn't exactly moving the table just yet, maybe later today, because it looks really bad in there. But, the consequence is somebody else got the space that you could have had if you had. I said all you have to do is just take your dishes out, wash them, and put them in the dishwasher. That's the only thing I asked for her moving upstairs. So, but I created that story. I created the story about what her story is, and then I created my story of how do I be a good adoptive parent, which I don't think that's the way to go, because I just enabled her to keep going.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's
that's
hard. Yeah, it's a hard one when we're raising kids because it's just what I had said before. Like as a parent, you want her to get her way, and another part where you need to stop it because she
right,
doesn't know what's best for her.
right. And apparently neither do I.
I don't think we know
Best for her
anything.
would be to What's best for her would be to, listen to what I had said. These are the rules, and have there be a rule,
Right.
you know.
That hard for you to make a rule up?
Um, this house is kind of squirrely because my husband and I disagree on certain things. So
Right.
I'll be called I won't, if we won't use the word punishing, but I'd be the punishing mom or the judgmental mom. And he can do the same, but he doesn't recognize it when he's doing it.
Right. Right. No, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. I get that. Well, relationships are set up to be conflicted.
Hmm.
There's no other way because we have we're in a thought system that only knows one way and then the opposite. And it's all about getting rid of the system and just being with spirit. And today's reading is that if we decided wrongly, which at least for
Yeah.
me, I do a lot, I can turn around and say, okay, I think I messed up. I need to come back to you, spirit, because the
Yeah.
ego doesn't know anything. And when you're saying one thing to her, your daughter, and then the mind then comes up with, well, I don't want to hurt her. You know how it does that? It's just
Right.
it's like so conflicted. It wants to be the best mother. It wants to do the right thing. It wants to be special, and it wants to please.
Yeah.
And people pleasing is big for me. That's just a response that I had as a child, and that just continues until you realize who you pleasing. There's no one out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yet you don't. And I tend to, as an ego, I tend to want to please my kids before I please myself. Um, that's just being a guilty mother, right?
Yeah.
He's saying that children get angry, and when we lose our temper, they know they've gotten us. I've won. I
Yeah.
never felt that way. My sons, when I would get really mad in my 30s, they would get like, wow, what happened to her? She's such a nice mom. And now she sounds like a rageful shrew. So, since the core of special relationship is getting others to meet our needs. Now, this is interesting because in Marshall's work, we want to know about needs and feelings. And we use that as an opening to get into the stillness because the conflict with listening to other people is that I want to be right. And now that we look at in nonviolent communication, that this person is not a mean person. This person, number one, is believing their thoughts and you're not listening to their needs, which you can listen to if you ask. Do you need something? And what feeling are you getting? If I feel like my husband doesn't listen to me, that's one of the things. He doesn't listen to me. Well, first of all, I'll be a Byron Katie now and say, well, can I listen to myself? Can
Right.
I listen to me? Because that's the whole point. We don't even listen to ourselves. We just speak from the thought system that is built on patterns. And patterns don't go away in the ego thought system, not if we've put our attention on them for years and years. The only way of going away is to give them to spirit. Um, it says, everything that we did with our children is what we did to God, as expressed in all formal religions. We tell God how to be, how to love us, how to be angry with us. We know that if we keep his commandments, which we wrote incidentally, he will love us. And so we seduce God by keeping his rituals, doing what we are supposed to do, knowing he will reward us. Once again, this is seduction that children do with parents. We think we are seducing the children, manipulating them into being good boys and girls. We give them extra cookies or toys so they'll be good. Well, I do that with my dog. I know he enjoys his treats, so I give him extra. And I wonder why I do that. Well, I want him to like me, I guess, right? I want to make him happy. But I probably want him to like me. I mean, in the ego thought system, we want to be the best. We want to be liked. We just want so much not to feel the fear and this disdain that we are in these trapped bodies that we believe means something. At least I believe. We stick a pacifier in the children's mouths. We know how to manipulate them, but do not realize they are manipulating us as well. See, the whole ego thought system is one of manipulation. And it's so unconscious sometimes that we don't see it, or I don't see it. I should speak from myself. They therefore end up with power we have given them because we have abdicated the parental role. They have the power to make us happy, angry, or sad. Well, that's true, actually. I mean, my kids are adults now. And the last thing I want to do is for them to get mad at me because my mind doesn't shut up after that. Mainly because the mind of the ego in this character is set up as a computer program that their needs come first and that what they believe is more important. And it's all based on guilt. That's all it is, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm gonna feel guilty if I move the computer out.
Yeah, and then you're a bad mother because we don't want to be bad. We're guilty. We're horrible.
Yeah. But
We're
I'm also not a good mother leaving it in there. It's I mean, it doesn't really matter which way I go because
Isn't
I'll
that true for
I'll
all of us?
interpret it. Yeah, I'll interpret it wrong.
Well, yeah, because it does seem to be like always in lack. It seems like we really don't know our best interests either. We don't, because our best interests are always, you know, to get it done and have it over with and please them and be done with that. And as far as like, I don't know that years ago that mothers took mothering as seriously.
Yeah.
I think they were anxious to take care of us, but not psychologically. They could say anything and that would be okay to us. Today, since psychology came on the planet, there's guilt attached if we say something wrong. Why did I say that? And my sons, if they don't like something I say, they immediately will retaliate. And who wants that? I mean, let's face it, I'm an ego. I want them to like me. I want them to remember that I'm a really good mother. I'm a nice person. While the rage in our minds from separation is so ridiculous. So, everybody's manipulating everybody, is what he's saying. The temptations when our kids are bad is to lose our peace and yell at them. What we teach them when we react the way is that their egos have power. We have all told ourselves, and unfortunately, the good book demonstrates it, that we have the power to make God angry, that we have the power to change God. Perhaps the worst part of the Bible's message. This is what A Course in Miracles calls the third law of chaos. We tell God what he should believe, and when he does, he acts accordingly. And that's in text chapter 23. Yet this is what we do as parents. We give our children the power to take our peace away. As I have mentioned several times, this does not mean that we should not discipline them or be firm, but we can still be at peace. This is a remarkably powerful lesson we can teach. As soon as we get angry, our kids have won, which makes us really angry because they have gotten to us. This little mouse roaring at the universe has gotten us to crawl into the sandbox with him and more back, which means that in the instant the child is remembering, I once more have triumphed over God, this is the worst thing we can do to a child. Now, mind you, Ken is actually talking from the unconscious ego. And with all his teachings, I think he's right on with the fact that our kids are manipulating us. So it's not real love. Love has, the Beatitudes are beautiful. The Beatitudes are always about love is patient, love is kind. And the truth is, we can't be any of those things unless we pause. Because we have the animal mind, the reptilian mind that comes in first and really wants to just bite everybody's head off. It says here, we do not love our children any less if they cry or smile, finish their food on the plate, or throw it on the floor. In other words, their behavior doesn't affect our attitude. Our love and peace remain unchanged. This is what helps us grow up, not as parents, but as children of God. So when we see what we're doing, this is the whole point of A Course in Miracles. There's so much, for me anyway, resistance into really understanding how lethal the ego really is. And when I say lethal, it's a conflict mechanism. It's a conflict thought system. It's like saying, why is he slurping his soup? Or I'm going to kill him if he slurps his food. Or when I'm sleeping, I don't want to be touched in the morning. I just want to just be left alone. Oh, then I become this I don't want him to, I don't want to hurt him, but I don't want him to touch me right now. These are the kinds of thoughts that come up. But all of these thoughts are in the unconscious thought system of the ego, right?
Yeah.
So
Sharon, finish what you're saying. I gotta get. I
no,
have to get.
I have to go. No, I'm good.
No, finish what you're gonna say.
I forget. That's why I'm not a teacher.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm teaching myself. I'm never good at
You're
this
so
stuff.
funny.
I know. I forget.
This was very helpful.
It is a good book. It is. It's
I
very
have it, but I've never read it the way you're reading it.
well. If you want to get on with me on 9:30 on Tuesdays, I do it till 10:30 every Tuesday.
Oh, really? Yeah. See, there's a class I'm headed for, and that I've been fighting for my rights in. You can't have the volume at such and such a level. So I'm just going in to see if this is my last class or not.
Oh, okay. There's your dog. There's your dog.
Yeah.
Oh.
He's back there somewhere. He's going to be upset because I
All
have to.
right. Well, I'll talk to you soon. Later.
Okay. Thank
whenever you want to. All right. Love
Appreciate it.
you.
Bye.
All right.
Love you too.
Bye-bye, honey. It's been interesting. We are just all one. We're on this one being that really believes that if we awaken, we're going to be out of this hell. But I don't know anything. I know that wakefulness is waking up for all of us, But I also know that the ego, the dark corners that are still there in my mind, require me to completely ask in almost every moment that I remember, what do I do next? Right? Our goal is not to be a loving parent, but right-minded children of God. This means that we will automatically be loving parents, children, teachers, or students. We will be loving in all our roles because the lessons when generalized when learned. We use our specific rules as classrooms in which we learn the single lesson of forgiveness that we then apply to each relationship and every situation. As a young psychologist, one of the surprising things I learned was that the therapist might be wonderful in their office, but not necessarily elsewhere. They could be unloving family members or insensitive colleagues, yet brilliantly astute and helpful to their parents. They did not learn very much because they did not generalize. If we practice unconditional love in one place but do not apply it to all places, we are not learning the lesson. Jesus makes the point in the second half of the introduction to the workbook that the purpose of these lessons is to help us generalize. If we do not generalize our learning, our love becomes more specialness. The lessons are remarkable too. I mean, they really are. And the lesson for today, I think I want to look at that for the next couple of minutes. I was on with Maureen's group today, and the lesson itself, it becomes so obvious that we can talk to God whenever we want, because that's who we really are, right? So let's see. It's not okay. So yesterday, this is a different review now. Okay, wait a minute. I didn't think they didn't do. God speaks to me all through the day, and I'm looking for that lesson. Well, whatever.
It's lesson 49.
All right.
God speaks to me all through the day.
This is interesting, Lynn. Oh, that's right. These pages stick. Okay. It is quite possible to listen to God's voice all through the day without interrupting your regular activities in any way. The part of your mind in which truth abides is in constant communication with God, whether you are aware of it or not. It is the other part of your mind that functions in the world and obeys the world's laws. It is this part that is currently distracted, disorganized, and highly uncertain. So, what is this whole path about? It's about certainty, that you know that this world never happened, right? The uncertainty that the ego brings in, the certainty is we know we're God's son. We know the character is not us because the character is just false evidence appearing real, right? So, the part that is listening to the voice for God is calm, always at rest, and wholly certain. It is really the only part there is. The other part is wild illusion, frantic and distraught, but without reality of any kind. So all day long, like I was talking when I was on Facebook today, talking to Suzanne, I was saying to her that we don't even need to travel because we are only seeing thoughts and images in our mind. We are really not in a world. If we choose to travel for fun, that's great. But a saying like would be an ego saying would be, well, I only have one life, so I want to see the world. Well, the world is only here when we're paying attention to our concepts. because the awakening is really the escape of conflict concepts. So try today not to listen to it. Try to identify with the part of your mind where stillness and peace reign forever. Try to hear God's voice, call for lovingly reminding you that your Creator has not forgotten His Son. We will need at least 4 to 5 practice periods and more if possible. We will try actually to hear God's voice reminding you of Him and of yourself. We will approach this happiest and holiest of thoughts with confidence, knowing that in doing so, we are joining our will with the will of God, and there is only one will. And that even goes with the illusion, with awakening. And there's no one special here. You know, when somebody wakes up, it's just that popcorn, Jiffy Pop popped. But the actual awakening is the rest of our lives. It's an ongoing, organic awakening, right? Listen in deep silence, but very still, and open your mind. Go past all the rashest shrieks and sick imaginings that cover your real thoughts and obscure your internal link with God. Sink deep into the thoughts and obscure your internal link with God. And it's always about sinking deeply in, because there's layers in this. There's layers of our consciousness. There's layers, or seeming layers, because none of this really happened, you know. So he's saying, sink deep. You do not live here. You do not live here. We are trying to reach your real home. We're trying to reach the place where you are truly welcome. We are trying to reach God. Do not forget to repeat today's idea very frequently. Do so with your eyes open when necessary, but closed when possible. And to ensure, and be sure to sit quietly and repeat the idea for today. And whenever you can, closing your eyes on the world and realizing that you are inviting God's voice to speak to you. And that requires just the fact that we need to really be aware. Have we asked Spirit? Have we stopped, paused, and then went? Because we can't know anything, even when we're walking, unless God is asked. The I know mind is our problem. The now is what we are. So with that, let me see what time it is now. Well, it's 9:25, so we're going to start our it's 10:23. So the whole point here in our process is that in every moment, who are we listening to? Are we listening to the mind of guilt, the mind of wrongness, the mind of being actually in a slaughterhouse? Because that's what we're doing. If I say I do not like so-and-so, I am stating I do not like Sharon. I do not like me. And I'm in tension. So I don't want to be in tension anymore. I want to be my being and be here now in this glorious moment of oneness where everything is inclusive, because that is who we truly are. We are not separate selves. The separate self is false evidence appearing real. Anyway, Lynn, do you have anything to share?
No, I'm just getting set up for the next hour. So,
All right. Well, I'd say now, I started to write down like things about the false old way of being. What does it do? It judges and myself and everyone else. It's made up of guilt. It's weak, afraid, playing small. Shame is in our minds all the time. And it blames, complains. It does everything, people pleasing, but none of it is the source of love. There's always a consequence. There's always like credit that we need. that we did this, that we're special, that we are the best God self there is. And that is truly the thought system of the ego. The ego is all about the fact that we are listening to a program that we created, that was created by the ego, for the ego, and it gets us nowhere. So with that, I'm going to drop the mic, and thanks, Lynn, for everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon, so much. I'm going to play a song while I get everything set up for the next hour. And it's our dear friend. Let me get this up and going. Um, Sweet, dear Reverend Yolanda, whom I love with all my heart. So here we go. Let's see. Share and share alike. All right. Just taking a minute. Oh, I am screen sharing. There we go.
Of heaven holds my heart today. The hush of heaven holds my heart today. Oh Lord, how still, how quietly do all things fall into place. This is the day I understand I am free. I am free. There is no need for me to do anything. Peace is here, my heart and mind at rest. Your love is heaven, and your love is mine today. In the stillness, there is hope. It lights the way as I travel far to my certain goal of oneness with love. Oneness with love. There is no doubt what my heart has promised me. Promised me. The hush of heaven
Wow, so lovely. Man, I love Reverend Yolanda. She is so beautiful and makes such wonderful music. And she's her birthday is the same day as Jennifer Nahulu and her brother Kenny. So it's just fun, fun, fun. And we went to see her when we were in New York at the um, I think it's cafe with a 2 drink minimum. Anyway, we went to see her, and her performance was just beautiful. So thank you, Rev. Roland.